welcome to the Guitar Hang Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Stankorb. This is Season 7, Episode 9, and man, do we have a heavy hitter for you today. I'm thrilled to welcome the incredible Doug Aldrich to the show. Doug's blazing tone and ferocious guitar playing have powered some of the most iconic rock bands out there, from Whitesnake to Dio, House of Lords, Revolution Saints, and of course the Dead Daisies. In this episode, Doug takes us on a journey through his epic career, from playing with legends to keeping that classic tone alive on stage and in the studio. We talk riffs, gears, songwriting, touring, and what it means to stay inspired after decades at the top of his game. So whether you're a tone chaser, shredhead, or a rock history buff, you're going to love this episode. Let's dive in.
You know, I started working with Blackstar, and we got a Blackstar signature amp out, and I'm digging it. I love it, but it also wanted to start kind of going through other amps and seeing how everything stacks up, and they're all different. It's really cool. But those Sir amps are just stellar, man. Those two behind me, I've got probably half a dozen Sir amps, and those two are just insane.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, a lot of time it's matching it with the right cabinet and just all the other, if you've got a couple of different rigs happening or different setups for, I'm sure you do a lot of recording at home at your place there. And
yeah, I do. I used to, I have a little room outside of this room that would have cabinets mic'd up and stuff. And, man, I would spend hours going back and forth trying to find the right combination of mic placement, amp, speaker placement. And so now a lot of times I'll just get a direct sound and then I'll leave it to the producer to figure it out, but I have this, the direct sound, the iRig, the cab rig that's coming out of the back of the Blackstar amps is really good if I'm using that amp. Otherwise, I got a Torpedo X, Captor X by Two Notes, and that I can put any of those amps through that and get a really great. They loaded me up with a bunch of really cool cabs, and but I'll say, like, for cabinet wise, like you were talking about matching cabs, this Blackstar Doug Aldrich signature cab, it's nothing to do with me. They just did me a really great cabinet with vintage 30s in it, and it's just killer. It's the best sounding cabinet I have.
Yeah, there's for expediency, the IR stuff is amazing, but there's something about moving air and the way certain really nice, especially the Sir cabinets, they're very resonant and lively. There's something about that that's still is very special. There's great pros and cons to the convenience of the IR stuff, but
wait, did I say the Sir cabinet or did I say the Blackstar cabinet?
I think you said the Blackstar cabinet.
Yeah, I don't have I do actually. I lied. I do have some Sir cabinets that I've used, and those are great too. They're really great.
Yeah,
the Marshall stuff's good. High Watts good. Whatever. But the Blackstar cabinet is killer because it's one cabinet, and you can use it stereo if you want with two different amps to get stereo effects or whatever, and then it's got a 4 ohm or a 16 ohm input jack, and it's just built solid, like the Sir 2 is built solid. So I just wanted to clarify. It's Blackstar is who I'm working with.
I think people that would tune into this would be interested to find out if, when you're coming up and playing, were you pretty tuned in to gear and finding tones? Maybe it was based on your favorite player, whether that's Blackmore or Hendrix or whatever. Did you find that was something that was in your wheelhouse, being able to identify your favorite players and trying to replicate their tone, or were you more into just accumulating chops, learning tunes, learning riffs, that kind of thing? Was it doing both simultaneously?
I don't think I was working so much on chops as much as trying to learn songs and learn how, chordally and rhythmically, basically just trying to just play the rhythm parts. I was definitely a rhythm player. That was my main focus. And as far as the sounds goes, I mean, my first kind of really good amp was a PV. It was called a PV Deuce.
Yeah, I remember those. I had one. Yeah.
It was a 212 combo. Yeah, 120 watts, loud like hell, and it was great. And I thought it was killer. And then, you know, of course, everybody, Marshall was the thing, and so I first got a Marshall cabinet. So then I had a bigger stack going, with the Deuce on top of the Marshall, and that sounded really good together. Those amps were really good, but something, I mean, my favorite tones were really from Marshalls. So eventually I got an old Super Lead, and I think it was at 71, and it was not modded. It was loud like hell. It was, 2 volumes, and eventually Tom Schultz came out with the Power Soak,
Power Soak. Yeah.
and that was the first time I could actually crank the amp to where it sounded good and bring it a little bit. But I had a Distortion Plus. Boss had just come out with their their pedals. They just come out with pedals, and they had the popular one was the OD. I think it's the OD1
Yeah.
Overdrive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people were using that, but I don't think I could emulate anybody at that point. I was just trying to get a nice big sound, and trying to learn how to play, trying to learn rhythm, stuff like that.
Yeah. The rhythm thing is such an underappreciated thing. I mean, some of our favorite players were killer rhythm players, whether it's Edward or whomever, there's something that's easy to forget when you're coming up and you're young, but so much of what is happening in those early days in the garage or basement is playing really good solid riffs and having great time. And that's something that I think can be lost if you're not careful for younger guitar players, that just want to learn all the
Yeah.
fastest shred stuff, but not having the Malcolm Young vibe to their,
Yeah,
that
I mean, there's a real magic and stuff to that kind of rhythm playing. All those guys are different, and it does kind of blow past you. You don't really think about it so much when you're a kid.
yeah,
There's so much, and kids are, the younger guitar players that I know are so talented. They can do anything. It's like it's crazy.
yeah,
I I don't know, but you're right. I mean, what Steve Lukather is, I just watched it on Instagram. He was talking to somebody doing an interview, and he said, he just goes like this. He goes, you know, 75% of the stuff I get paid to do is rhythm.
yeah,
So it's super important and us guitar players, I don't know about you, but like us hard rock guitar players were always a little bit known for rushing
yeah,
and being on top of the beat, which is it's okay live and stuff, but it's not as good as when you're in the pocket. And that's what guys like Malcolm Young and those guys really felt. That's what made the song sound so good, is because it was in the pocket and the rhythm playing was so strong.
yeah, yeah. I loved Malcolm's playing, and I love the two guys that come to mind that were in a trio format that I loved their parts. In fact, as much as I love their lead playing, was Ty Tabor from King's X and Alex Lifeson of Rush, just because they filled that trio thing up with
Yeah.
really cool parts, and they're using interesting colors and shade. It was just always fascinating to me, the whole rhythm aspect of guitar playing, because it seems like that was where as much as I love soloing, I'm a huge Gilmore guy. Uh,
Yeah.
but I love that, especially in a trio format, because Edward was essentially in a trio format. So I love that kind of thing where you're trying to fill the space in an interesting way, but retaining a pocket.
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely, I'd spent a lot of time learning Rush songs because, when I was younger, I discovered Rush, and it was like you put the headphones on and listen to those songs, and there was such cool guitar parts going on,
Yeah,
musical band parts, and then there was a lot of times there was some interesting time signatures or riffs, that
yeah,
were really like technically cool. And so I spent a lot of time on that, and then later in the 80s, I heard about King's X, and I heard Ty Tabor, and he was scary, man, how good
right.
his tones, his rhythm playing was so like just fat and kind of a little bit of a funky thing to it, but then his lead playing was great as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, he definitely he still is, he's still doing it.
yeah, yeah. Doing it beautifully. So I would assume that you came up as in your 9, 10, 11, playing guitar, playing in bands and that kind of stuff. That were you a Midwestern guy, or were you on the coasts? Where did you come up?
I was in the East Coast when I started playing guitar. I was in Maryland, and immediately started jamming with friends. Basically, I was sitting with two friends, and we decided that we wanted to be in a band.
Yeah,
And okay, so I said, well, I'll play bass, and the other guy goes, no, I want to play bass. I'm like, okay, I'll play guitar because I don't know, for some reason drums never didn't. So that's how simple and innocent it started. I just decided, okay, well, I'll be the guitar player. If you want to play bass, I just something about the bass seemed cool. It was like, really had a big sound to it, whatever. But yeah, we started playing immediately, learning stuff. And the first riff that we learned how to play together, and we jammed on it for hours, was "Smoke in the Water." That
yeah,
was the first. The three of us just jammed it, and then the drummers, the bass player's dad, not dad, his bass player's cousin or uncle. It was an uncle. That's what it was. He showed us some chords to Ventura Highway by
America.
Ventura America, yeah. And he showed us those chords, two chords, and then he soloed like on top of it for a couple hours. It was just like we were just playing those two chords and listening to him solo, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
So that's where it started. And then little by little, I eventually learned bar chords, etc. And then somewhere after learning all these songs in the basement with my bros, like I said, we were working on everything from Rush to Zeppelin to Van Halen to Ozzy to Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, UFO. Um, there was, uh, stuff like Ted Nugent, Aerosmith, Boston, whatever we could find. AC/DC, obviously. Couldn't really do the Pink Floyd stuff because it was just the three of us. Um, but yeah, it was just little by little, I started to play a little bit of lead, and I was definitely impressed with, the technical. When I saw all these guys play solos and stuff, it was amazing. But seeing Edward play live in 1979 was a breakthrough, big time, and that inspired me to want to sit in my bedroom and learn how to play like that. And then, obviously we practiced every weekend, so I'd be standing up playing with the band. And then seeing Randy Rhoads play live was the second, like as far as a technical perspective, like wow, okay, this is so killer, man, and I wanted to do that. So I was really practicing both by myself and with the band, with the guy, not band, but like guys I was learning from,
yeah,
learning with.
yeah. There's a whole legion of players that kind of were coming up at that time, and including yourself, and you had guys like Warren D. Martini and George Lynch and all these guys that were kind of in the area, soaking up the thing. Jakey Lee, seeing
Yeah.
Edward play, seeing Randy play, and that was kind of like the maybe the second wave of like guitar heroes, and the
Yeah,
bar
those
was just
guys.
ridiculously high. You felt like, okay, if that's the if I've got to be at least that good or close to that good, that's a very healthy competitive scene back in the day that I'm sure propelled you guys to go and take that kind of information and go off and do different projects. But it's no small task learning Edwards, even a fraction of his rhythm playing or Randy's stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't really. I mean, there were a few songs of Van Halen that I could play, um, but I never could sound. I could never play like I couldn't learn an Eddie Van Halen solo or anything like that. It was I probably still couldn't. I don't know, man. It would just sound like me trying. That's what it would be. But that's kind of a good thing, you know. And then same with Randy. Randy, I was a little closer to. It was somehow more um, technically in my wheelhouse a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that was where I probably gravitated a lot towards him because I could play a little closer to his style. Um, but then, around now we're talking about like the early 80s, and I just moved out to Los Angeles in 1981, and first night I ended up at one of the rock clubs, and eventually I was just first staying with some relatives, and then I got a little studio apartment this down in Venice, California, which was crazy at the time. And went to the Gazzarri's one night, and Jakey Lee was playing guitar for Rat, and
Yeah.
Jake he immediately impressed me a lot. He was great. And then Rat didn't come out for maybe another couple of years or something, I guess. It took a while. Then there were bands like, the Hollywood bands like Motley Crue and stuff like that that were starting to break through. But then Rat came out, and Warren was definitely killer. Jake, around 82 or 83, I guess, 83 was when he went with Ozzy. Um, and then, yeah, it was just like I was by that time I was seriously into, full on soloing and being, I was already in several bands playing in LA at the time. So I was into it.
Yeah, I think the thing that made the different players, even though they all had great skills, is that they were individually you're learning stuff pre-tablature, pre-internet, pre-YouTube. So even if in fact, in some ways, it's better if you're not copying Edwards' thing 100% because if you're getting the essence of something, that may lead you down into another corridor of coming up with your own riffs, your own ideas, or your. Sometimes it's better to take the concept of the solo rather than the actual solo verbatim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and learning how to do certain techniques your own way out of necessity because nobody, like you said, nobody was there to show you or you
Right.
couldn't see it. So you just had to use your ear and be like, well, it sounds kind of like that, or whatever. Some little Edward legato pull off hammer on picking thing. And then Randy's same thing, legato and staccato stuff. You just learn to do it your own way, and it's I was teaching guitar around 82, and there was a lot of young kids that wanted to play, and by that time I had some chops and stuff, and I was playing every weekend in LA. So there were kids that wanted. It was like they wanted to be Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and Jakey Lee and all those guys. So I was trying to learn some of that stuff and teach techniques. And then the first thing I would do is break it down into the scales that I knew, which was the diatonic scales, the major scales, and the pentatonic scales, and then little techniques, and then they'd want to learn how to, teach me this song or something. So I'd learn it by ear, try and figure it out. And I'd explain to them, look, I don't know exactly how he's doing it, but this is what it sounds like. So you got to use your ear and
Right.
figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, it's because I've been teaching for almost 40 years, and it's like the more that I write stuff out for students and the more that I force feed them, the less likely they are to retain it. Sometimes you just have to kind of give them the essence of things and say, okay, this is the scale he's working out of. It's diatonic to this particular key. It's this mode or whatever. But you're going to have to put some of it. I can't do it all for you, and to sit there and write it. We don't have a 30-minute lesson becomes like a game show. They come in and they bring in I'm the one or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You got to write it down and then figure out a way to teach it. It can be a difficult thing, but I think students learn more when they have to put in their sweat equity or put a little bit of their ass
Totally.
in. What I
Yeah,
mean?
totally. And I mean, because, I've seen I'm the One played on YouTube probably 20 different ways, and a couple of the guys get it perfect, and
Yeah.
it's like exactly what it was. But other guys, it's not exactly right, but it's so close so you can't really tell.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think you got to put your own time in and figure out, like, I think that's a great way to describe it, is grab the essence of it and don't copy it exactly, because then you sound like that guy. You want to put your own stamp on it and try and figure it out your own way, what feels good, because everybody's hands are different, everybody's feel is different, and that's important to not lose that.
Right. Yeah, and I
you
think
know
for yourself when you're getting these gigs, you're auditioning for uh, different acts or bands or artists, whether it be Dio or Whitesnake or whatever. They're hiring you for your personality that you bring musically. That you've got something of yourself, and it's a very attractive thing to want to be a clone of somebody, but it can be a detrimental thing when to carve a career out like yourself would have been very difficult if people just said, "Oh, yeah, Doug's a great player, but he's got that Randy thing down." He's really, if he was in an
yeah,
Ozzy tribute band, he would nail. But it's not the thing that you want, but it's the very thing that's seductive when you're a young player, or even at any age, to want
yeah,
so desperately to sound like somebody.
yeah, or even a few people. I mean, that's what I see a lot of guys now, or they're kind of more really studying, like, the different styles. Like, they might go to Paul Gilbert and work on his picking and his sweep picking and string skipping stuff, and then they might go to Eddie for this, and they might go to Gary Moore for that, and so that's cool. But still, I mean, I think it's probably good if you can learn the licks and the way that Paul does it exactly, or Ingve, the economy picking thing. It's all valuable, but the end result is that when you get to be, in your 20s, let's say, by that point, you hopefully have started to acquire a style of
Yeah.
some kind. And I think part of that is, there's certain things that you rely on, certain licks that you're good at, you do them, and they sound good and they work. And then you do them more and more, and all of a sudden, that's like, oh, that's John's style, that's Doug's style, whatever. Um, but yeah, little by little, you build on that, and you learn some other. You might learn a Gilmore solo just in your own way, and realize, wow, I love the mode or the flavor of that. I want to do that, but I'm going to do that on some other kind of a song or whatever. So it could be really helpful, but you don't have to. You're not going to be pegged as a David Gilmour guy or something.
Yeah.
You just use it.
Yeah, I always like those players that, and I hear this in your playing, that have the chops, but also have this melody thing imbued in their thing. There's something very melodic and very rich. Guys like yourself, John Sykes, Gary Moore, those guys had this thing. It's in their vibrato. It's in their phrasing. It's not. It's a real challenge these days to have a thing that still can get to people who are not necessarily guitar players that want to just hear.
Well, I mean, look, the two biggest ones are like you said, David Gilmour and guys like even like Neil Schon or Steve Lukather.
Yeah.
The solos that you can whistle them, you can hum them, and it's like a song within the song, and it's so cool. And of course, when you watch somebody shredding, that's amazing too. But it's. I mean, if as you get older, you realize, wow, man, I want to write a solo like Comfortably Numb or like Don't Stop Believing, or Who's Crying Now. That melody in Who's Crying Now, Neil Schon. That's just it's just a genius melody, man. It's just like, whether you're a fan or not of that band, his guitar playing there's no doubt. And Steve Lukather, he can shred like anybody, but my favorite solos of his are the stuff that's just like dead simple, like 2 or 3 notes, and he's just milking it.
Yeah, like I Won't Hold You Back. That solo.
Yeah.
That's
my favorite. That's my favorite solo of his. It's like it's got a little Beck flavor. You can hear it, but it sounds like Lukather,
Yeah. How did you handle the audition process when you're coming up? Because it's like we said, there's so many great players that were coming up at that time, and to have your own thing. Did you find was it a very difficult, tenuous thing getting through the audition process, getting into bands like Whitesnake and getting the gig with?
Well, I think the most important thing is that I definitely I did some auditions that I didn't get too. There was stuff where I was just like auditioning with Kiss. I was just very young, and hanging out with these guys was just not for them or me. It was not comfortable for me either. I was really nervous, like these guys were rock stars. And so you really need to be able to, I think it's almost equally as important when you're getting in a band is your playing and your chops has to be kind of a given. You got to know that you have that. One of the biggest things I think is the hangout factor. Like, can we hang out together? Can we actually sit down and have a meal and a discussion? Or can we talk about things that can we talk about things together? Not like every time you got to educate me about stuff because I'm too young and you got to tell me about, later on, you're going to find out, that gets boring. It gets boring really fast. It gets boring really fast. So the hangout factor is what's super important.
Yeah.
I think that's where if you got 2 guys that are equally good, whoever is kind of easier to hang with is going to get the gig. And imagine you're in a band and you're looking for somebody. Yeah, of course you want somebody that plays great, but the guy's got to be cool.
Yeah.
Or the girl's got to be cool. It can't be somebody that's all egoed out or has a difficult streak or, you know what I mean? Like, easy is easier. Like, like Yngwie would say, more is more. Well, yes. And easier is easier. If you're hanging with people, somebody that's easy to hang with, it's like, hey, let's go with that guy. Cause they're both great, but we went and got a Starbucks together or whatever, and it's like, we were laughing about this, the whatever, something.
Yeah.
That's important to, the personality thing is very important, but yeah, confidence wise, to go into an audition and basically know in your heart that you've got it, that you've got the goods, and you'll pretty much know, like, all right, I can see myself in this band, and it becomes a confidence thing, and that's attractive to people too. That you're like, you're not trying to throw everything that at them. You're basically doing what they're asking you to do and doing it really good. And then, if you make a mistake, you laugh about it. And it's like, I know that other supposed to, I know I was supposed to, whatever. I forgot about that part. Let's do it again. Let me try it. I can work on that, like just being honest and stuff like that. But I think confidence and personality is important as well as the playing.
Yeah, I think the confidence, especially when you're coming into it, it's one thing if you're auditioning for a singer-songwriter thing where different seasons that artist is going to have different players all the time. But when you're going into a legacy band like Whitesnake or Dio and you realize, okay, well, Hurricane, House of Lords, whatever it might be, you know that not only is it a fragile ecosystem on the bus, but there's going to be a time at which when an album might be discussed. So you have to be able to have a language with the other guys and this kind of understanding of the same bank of influences. If you're writing tunes together, having some songs, having a lyric, having something, it's a different thing when it's a legacy thing because there's a lot more on this at stake because you're replacing a person maybe the three deep, they were all amazing players in their own right.
Yeah.
You're asked, okay, now it's your turn to step into the fold and carry this thing forward. That seems like that would be daunting, but at the same time, you can't let any of that show. You just have to have that confidence to know they hired you for a reason,
Yeah, and I mean, by a certain point too, I mean, you're wanting to put music together. It's fun to put music together that you think sounds good, and same thing around your 20s into your 30s, you should have a cachet of a lot of different ideas and things like that you're not trying to grab one of those things and push it on the person. You're trying to use those inspirations as something like when somebody goes, hey, I would love to, I'd love for us to have a song that's what do you call it? A boogie? I was just listening to Thin Lizzy last night, and some of my favorite stuff of theirs is like this boogie thing, and so like if I got called by Phil and said, hey, we're interested in a guitar player, we want you to play guitar with Scott Gorham or whatever, I would be like, okay, well, you got, like you said, there was Brian Robertson and Gary Moore and John Sykes. So I need to bring something a little different. I need to be able to cover those bases a little, do it my own way. But then like looking to the future, like I know you've already got Don't Believe a Word. That's one of them. Right? So like, okay, you want to do a shuffle. Well, let's find something it's something different, like what Sykes did with Whitesnake with Give Me All Your Love Tonight. That was like a shuffle, and it was something that fit with Whitesnake and it fit with Sykes' style. And so that's what I mean. Like, don't try. He wouldn't try and come in and say like, here's another Don't Believe a Word. He'd come in with like, okay, you want to, this is a shuffle, but it's a different kind of riff.
Yeah.
And it's got this kind of really cool turnaround. And that might be perfect for, writing a song with Phil Lynott. And that would be the way to do it, as opposed to, hey, I've got this song, man. Listen to the song. It's done.
Yeah.
A lot of times people don't want, I mean, it can be interesting if they want to go listen to it and go, I like this part. I like that part. It's inspiring, but let's break it down again. Let's write together. That's where, when it does come time, whether it's like act or a brand new band, is like sitting down together and bouncing ideas off each other and being able to like right at the spur of the moment go, yeah, that's cool. Let's work with that for a while.
Yeah.
And don't worry about a whole song that you had. Just say, hey, if there's anything, what I do? I go, even now, I go to John Corabi, who I think is literally one of the greatest singers I've worked with. He's a badass. But he's the singer. He's got to deliver it. If we're doing a Dead Daisies song, I'll just go, John, here's something that I was thinking of you on, and it's just a riff. I don't know if it resonates at all. Let's work on it. And you'll basically know, because the guy will either go, oh yeah, that's cool. Show me how you did that, and then it's like, then there's some interest there. But if he's not into it, then let it go.
Yeah.
It's important to just move on and don't get precious with your ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited hearing some of the tunes from the album that's coming out soon, and love the blues thing. And I was kind of interested at the genesis of that. Was that something that had been kind of on the horizon for you guys for a while, or how did it come about? Because the interpretation of the tunes it's I love the blues for that reason, because you can put your own flavor. It's kind of like musical tofu. It's like what you put into it, you can flavor it your own way, but it still retains that cool form. And the songs that you chose are fantastic. So I'm just kind of curious how it came about.
They're really good songs. It was not planned. It was just, we were in the studio in Muscle Shoals. They got us, they gave us a really great rate. We got in there for a week to basically just be in a new environment that we hadn't been in, with a lot of history to it. And it was very inspiring to write original music in there, and just, I don't know, clear play. Sometimes if you do something in the same place all the time, you get it's a little, stagnant. So we went in there, and then they were doing this studio. Fame Studios is a very famous studio. So they were doing tours every day. Part of their way that they could, stay alive is to have people come in that want to know the history. And so they would do these tours with like 20 people around dinner time, and like talk about, oh, this is right where Aretha Franklin stood when she sang "I Never Loved a Man," and like this is where Dwayne Allman first shook hands with Wilson Pickett or whatever. And so they're talking about this stuff, and we're listening to these things every day, and it's like, man, this is an awesome place to be. We're grateful for this. And then little by little, we started to do some listening to some stuff. We have a couple, for those people who are drinking wine or whatever, to have a couple glasses of wine or whatever, and it would be like, everything's set up. Let's just go have a jam, Yeah. And I think Marty Fredrickson was like, I like what you guys are doing when you're playing, for example, like Crossroads or something. You're just doing it in a totally different way than what people know it for. Most people know the Cream version because it was so popular in the 70s and is on the radio and stuff. And then the original version is a complete stripped down blues thing. We kind of hit it in a way, like a Zeppelin groove, right. I can tell you exactly where we kind of grabbed that from. Was Celebration Day. It was that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I totally get that. Yeah.
So like, that was our groove that we started with, just the groove. And then, it went from there, and one song led to another, and they're just great songs. And the disclaimer that I'm going to put out there is there's lots of mistakes and lots of stuff that I would never play again because it was just off the cuff, like we did it really quickly. And I listen back to it and I go, oh man, I wish I would have done this. Or I hear the melody where it wanted to go, right after the vocal, it should have done this. But it was a snapshot of where we were last year. And that's kind of another, that's a valuable thing, because it's a blueprint. There's no preconceived ideas on pretty much anything. Another one was Thrill Is Gone. I've always loved that song just the way it was. I don't know. There's no way to better it. Right. there's just really not. It's just perfect. You know, it's like Ain't No Sunshine. It's just perfect as it is. Or Hey Joe, Jimi Hendrix's Hey Joe.
Yeah.
You can't. It's perfect, man. How are you going to do that? So we decided to change up the groove and make it more of a 6/8. Again, a little bit of a Zeppelin-y influence there, and then we were just going through the song, playing it, and it was the end of the day, and we were going to hit it again the next morning, and so Marty said, "Hey, take the take a an MP3. It used to be take a tape home, but take an MP3 and listen to it, and then we'll hit it fresh, And I listened to it at night, and then I listened to it in the morning, and I was like, dude, this was like, that take was so freeform. There's a lot of cool stuff going on.
Yeah.
I like how I kind of led to the melody here, but then I did some licks that I've never done before. I don't know. I can't relearn it. That's what I played it, how I felt it. There's no way. And I told Marty, I was pretty freaked out. I go, I don't know if I can do it any better. I think it's just going to get worse every time I play it now. Because it's like, unless and I'll tell you a little thing that works with me, but yeah. So he goes, hey, don't worry about it. Let's let it be what it is. It's one take, and we cleaned up, the lead parts were all good, but there was a couple of out of tune chords. So I had to clean those up. But there is a thing that works for me sometimes where I would do sessions and the producer would go, play whatever, and I'd play it, and he'd be like, that's great. I love it. I'm like, hold on. I'm just starting to get something going here. I think I know what I want to do. Let me try it again. And the producer's going, dude, the first one was the best one. What are you doing? We're wasting time here. I'm like, hold on. I got this. It's going to take me a second. I got to figure it out. And the pressure of like, come on, man, there's the first take. You got it on the third take. That's the one. It's like, okay, we'll move on. But there are times when I hear it and if I've got the ability to really go down every wormhole that comes in my mind when I'm working on a melody, I can get there eventually, and it can be even greater than it was. It takes time. For me, it takes time. If I start the melody, I start to climb up to the next, the next note that I think is a good pivot note. Then I realize, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, then I've got to keep building it, but it's building too quick. Let me start over. Let me try and find a way to get to that note.
Yeah.
But a little bit slower. And eventually you go, that's how I want it to be. And then you listen to it fresh and go, ooh, wait a minute. I could do this though. Let me do this. And if you have time to work that out, eventually you can come up with something that's genius. That's really good. And some stuff that I had done with Whitesnake, I felt like, and I had the opportunity to do that. I had hours to just fuck around and experiment. And there was a song it's got a kind of a Gary Moore solo to it. It's melodic, and it was a ballad. I think it was called "All I Want, All I Need." Mm-hmm. And the song, the song is it's like a heavy duty production. It's like a lot going on. There's keyboards and strings and vocals and backgrounds and organ and then tons of guitar, too many guitars on the original version. And now listening to it, it feels like it's overproduced. But the solo comes in, and I'm like, yep, I'm glad I put that time into it because it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, when it's a produced thing like that, I totally get I get that vibe, because you want to craft something that makes sense to you, that ties all the elements together. But then conversely, something exciting about being a live tracking date on the floor in Muscle Shoals at Fame Studio, even though you might listen back later and hear something that you could change. It's the energy that was so exciting. And there's so many things, like especially with Page, so many things in his solos that you kind of go, man, that was clearly a a weird thing, but it's like it's so embedded in our DNA that if we went back and fixed it, it wouldn't be the same. It would be, like airbrush
Yeah,
Mona
yeah,
Lisa or something. It's
true. I wouldn't want him to, but we never know what he went through. Maybe he worked it up. Maybe it was just
yeah,
like,
yeah. You
who
never.
knows? Who knows, man? But like, yeah, there's nothing I would change about his Led Zeppelin song. There's nothing I would change about it. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
Just and yeah, like you said, sometimes just the energy of being there and like go, you don't have any idea what you're going to do and you just go for it and you go, oh, well, that was good. Of course I could have done something better, but it's got a great vibe to it. And in the end of the day, it's just the guitar players that are really going to say anything about that. If they go, oh, he didn't quite nail that thing, or he could have done this. But most people are just going to go, I love the song. It's
yeah,
cool. And the solo's got a great vibe to it, great energy. So it's good.
yeah. I think sometimes when we're playing our best, I don't know. This is for me. I don't know if it's for you. After a really good show, I don't remember much about it. It's like it just was a stream of it. It just happened. The audience loved it. It was great. But it's like the things. If it was a bad night, I tend to remember more of those things than if
You're absolutely right.
there's
Yeah.
something that if I can't remember it, that's probably a good sign because you go and you do it, and it's yeah, it's a very unusual feeling not to be able to recall some of those things.
No, it's true. It's like if you just do it and it was like, okay, cool, and then you forget about it. But if there was some trauma that went down and you're like, you know, you
Yeah,
never forget that.
yeah, yeah. Um,
It's
it,
like that's a great example. Is Tom Brady, the quarterback. He go like, well, tell us about your favorite win. He goes, I don't know, man. It was just winning. It's good, but the losses is what I got to tell you about. The losses is where you really dig deep and you go, I don't want to do that again.
right.
And that's where the inspiration to be better really comes from is those failures that you got to get through. And I've had them. I was just hanging with a buddy of mine, and he was really kind. We went through a bunch of amps together and just experimenting against the Black Star Ruby amp that I just put out with Black Star, and that's why I'm sitting here, because I'm just doing it in my own little room now. But we went to his place and took the Ruby amp, and we played through that and about maybe 15 other amps, and all were great. And he spent a lot of time with me, and he was a guy that he'd be the first guy to tell me, like, well, long story short, he wrote some nice things. Hey, it was nice to hear Doug play today. He played from his heart with each amp. It was great. But he was one of the guys that said to me, he came to a show and he was like, dude, it was not happening. I'm like, what? He goes, this was years ago. He was just being honest. He was like, you everything was overdone. It was overcooked. You played too much. The sound wasn't, your tone wasn't great. And sometimes you need somebody to kick in the ass
Yeah,
and tell you that, and say, like, you could, you should. There's a lot. You listen to the guy, and at this point it was like there was grunge stuff going on. He said, listen to the guy in Gin Blossoms. That guy, that's a solo, and it was like, okay, I get it. That makes sense, and so you need people to be honest with you and push you a little bit. And that to me was a failure. And then it made me want to get better for the next time that
yeah,
guy came and saw me play.
yeah. I think when we get together with, especially our guitar playing friends, we always tend to gravitate towards the disasters or things that were really painful that made us better in the long run. But there's something very relatable that because all of us have gone through this thing of being like, man, I just fucking blew that, or I could have done so much better, and it's great if you have our front of house guys like that, if he's happy with the tone and everything. Then, and he speaks real truth, which is great. We all need somebody to,
Yeah.
to be that person to say, hey man, this is no slight on your abilities. It's just, you could, a 2-degree turn is really all it's going to take to get you right in the sweet spot. And
That's we're living parallel. We're living parallel lives, man. It's like I'll get a text from the front of house guy, and he'll be like, "Hey, bro, give me a shout. What do you got a minute?" And I'll be like, "Okay, something was off."
Yep.
He wants to talk to me,
Oh yeah.
and like, and he would be like, "Why don't you come in to sound check tomorrow? Because we usually don't do sound checks. They don't want us to. They don't want us there. They want to just do their line check, set it up, same shit, every day, and they don't want us to really be there because we end up making things harder, maybe. But he would say like, "Hey, why don't you come in? We'll work on your sound a little bit because I think it got a little too gainy or it's too thin or whatever, And I'll go in and I'll start twisting knobs like this, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on, dude.
Right.
Just breathe on it, just a little bit." And I'm like, "I can't even hear that. I can't even hear the difference."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he'll go, "Well, yeah, a little difference here and a little difference there, and all of a sudden you got this thing." It's like, "Okay, I'll trust you. Let me trust your ears. How about this? Like, just a little more try." And okay, what about that? He'll go, "Yeah, that's good." And then he'll go, "But what about the bottom end? Maybe bring it up a little. Okay, how about like this? Yeah, that's good." He's like, "How's that feel?" I'm like, "That feels really good. That's cool." So you're right. It's in our parallel lives, the sound man that's what his job is to do, is to make it sound good. So
And we're physically
they come.
and literally too close to it, because in our little world, in our little universe, we have this thing in our head of what it sounds like. We have no clue what's happening front of house wise, or what's working with the other, especially in a Pink Floyd tribute, we've got a lot of layers and colors to contend with. So, but in any band, we just, guitar players, we get in this thing of, we know it sounds good in our rooms here, but then when we get to the
Yeah,
gig and we're sound, we need somebody out there, especially, what's the difference between nobody in the audience when we're sound checking and then when the room's full? So yeah, front of house guys are worth their weight in gold, especially if they're ones that speak truth and not just blow smoke up your ass.
yeah, true, true, true. I don't. That's no good. I hate it when you feel like someone's doing that. I mean, when you have a bad night, it's always interesting. You feel like it's a bad night, and that's the first time that somebody will come up and go, "Man, it was amazing tonight." You're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
the feeling." It's
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it,
No, it's
you
like,
know,
it wasn't amazing.
then when it was amazing, nobody comes up, nobody says anything. I don't know, man. It's all a game. It's all a chase. I'm still chasing everything, chasing my playing, chasing my tone.
Yeah.
There's those days when we all think we suck. There's nothing. I know all my licks. I can play them. I can play them to you in 30 minutes. Everything that I know, and then you realize, well, there's more than that. So, but I wish I could hang out all day because this
Oh
has
yeah.
been amazing. Unfortunately, they got me on a tight leash,
Oh, no worries, man. This has
and
been great. I really appreciate it a lot, Doug.
no, my pleasure. It was really cool, and definitely we're kindred spirits. I love your guitar right there. That's like I saw Gilmore in Hollywood last year.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. October 29th, my wife and I were at the Hollywood Bowl.
I was one of those days. It might have been the 29th. There was a couple he played, and I don't know if you know, but I was going through I was going through neck cancer,
Oh, I didn't know.
and yeah, I had right before that, I had gotten the surgery a few days before to remove my tonsil and then to remove some lymph nodes.
Yeah.
And my buddy, a buddy of mine was flying it from Mexico, and he had these 2 tickets, and then he somehow scored some really great tickets.
Yeah.
And he just gave them to me, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to go, but I did go, and it was like you were there. So, well, hey, John, thank you so much. Have a great day, bro.
Okay, talk soon. Bye-bye.
A massive thanks to Doug Aldrich for hanging out with us today on the Guitar Hang Podcast. It was such a blast to hear his story, diving into his playing style and getting a real glimpse into the life of hard rock truly was. If you dug this episode, please do me a favor, like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an epic hang like this one. And hey, if you support the show, you can do so on Venmo, Jon Stankorb. Every little bit helps keep the musical conversation going. You can always explore more. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.